Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin the funeral service. We ask for those that have a cell phone or pager, if you could turn it to the silent mode. Officiating is Rabbi Allan.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for coming on this Thursday afternoon, middle of a busy week, taking time, taking your hearts, taking your minds and your presence to show love and respect and a kavod achron and a final honor to our dearly departed Dr. Louis Goldsmith, Alav Shalom, Eliezer ben Yitzchak Halevi. We come to spend moments of reflection and memory and memorial. Everyone's presence here matters greatly to the family and to Rose and to everybody. And we're very touched that you could be with us. So many people are feeling the loss now and are grieving and are aware of the lack of someone very special, someone very great, someone who touched and influenced the world and brought his own special light into our presence. Before we begin, I want to especially wish my condolences to the immediate family, to his son Gerald and Laura, to Allan and Bryna, to the family of the late Rabbi Aaron Goldsmith, Zichron Livracha, to his wonderful grandchildren, to Heather and Phil, to Yitzy and Mimi, Shmuly, to Paul and Liz, to Chani and Shuky, to Moshe and Shoshanna, to Shula and Yehuda, to Jenny and James, to Rochel and Shira, Amy, and soon to be with Scott. And of course, there were many adored and wonderful great-grandchildren. I think the number was up to 14. We will have time to not only speak about his physical legacy and all the wonderful people that he left behind, but also his impact on life and all the things he did that created a legacy for his name and his goodness. We begin with the words of Psalms, Tehillim. We will say in Hebrew and English for everyone to understand and appreciate. Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach be'atzas rishayim ובדרך חטאים לא עמד, ובמושם לייסים לא ישב, כי אם בתורס אדוני חפצו, ובתורסו יגע יומם ולילה, והיה כעץ שסול על פלגי מים, אשר פריו ייתן בעיתו, ועליהו לא ייבול, וכל אשר יעשה יצליח, לא כן הרשעים, כי אם כמות אשר תדפנו רוח, על כן לא יקומו רשעים במשפט, וחטאים בעדת צדיקים, כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים ודרך רשעים תאבד. Happy is the one who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, who does not stand in the path of the sinners, who does not sit among the jeering cynics. Instead, the Lord's teachings is all his desire, and he contemplates that teaching day and night. He is like a tree planted on streams of water, yielding its fruit in season. Its leaves never wither. All its produce thrives. Not so the wicked, they not endure their judgment, nor the sinners among the righteous crowd. For the Lord cares for the way of the righteous, while the way of the wicked will be lost forever. King David continues in Psalms, Mizmor David, Adonai roi lo echsar, Benos desha yarbit seini yomei menucha sinahaleni, Nafshi yeshova yancheni b'magli tzedek laman shemo, Gam ki elech begates al maves lo yirara ki ato yimadi. Shiftecha mishantecha hema yinachamuni. Taroch lefanai shochan neged sorarai. Dishanta b'shemen roshi kosi revaya. Achtova chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavdi yivei Adonai leorech yamim. A psalm of David, the Lord is my shepherd. I lack for nothing. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He refreshes my soul and guides me along the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they encourage me. You set a table before me in the face of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup brims over. May only goodness and kindness follow me all the days of my life. Let me live in the Lord's house forevermore. And finally, the psalmist says, David says, Shir lamalos esai nai el harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri, Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. Al yitain lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha, hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzocha yad yaminecha, yomam hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorecha mikol ra yishmor es nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeitzcha v'yecha me'atav yad olam. A song of ascents. I lift my eyes up the hills. Where will my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who guards you does not slumber. Behold, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is your guardian, and the Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all harm. He will guard your life. The Lord will guard you from going and coming, now and forevermore. And as we close our section of Psalms, we ask the Lord on high, the Master of all, to guard the precious soul of Dr. Louis Goldsmith, Eliezer ben Yitzchak Halevi, and bring him to his eternal resting place in the Garden of Eden. I had the privilege of knowing Dr. Louis Goldsmith for the last 6 basic years. And he was a man of immense greatness, a man of tremendous integrity, a man of tremendous character, and a tremendously talented man who graced our presence and made our community and our home a better place while he lived there. Lou was born in Toronto, a Canadian by birth, and I think proud of being a Canadian. His parents, Yitzchak and Bela Goldsmith, they were immigrants from Eastern Europe. I think Yitzchak was a furrier involved with the fur business. And he had a small family. It was him and his brother Jack of blessed memory. And as he grew up, he thrived, he learned, a bright, intellectual, sharp-minded person, eager to know, eager to learn, eager to understand the way the world worked and the way life worked. Probably the best thing he brought with him from Canada when he eventually moved to the United States was his dear beloved wife, Rose. I think they've been married this year 72 plus years. An amazing woman. We wish her happiness and health and goodness for many long years. What an amazing couple together, Lou and Rose. What a special marriage and what a special life. What an amazing legacy they have. He attended the University of Toronto, received his college degree, his PhD in chemical engineering. I probably couldn't have understood any of his lectures if he would have given them. But he was a real brain, a real smart guy who understood the way things work and the way processes work. His uncle or his step-uncle, when he was younger, got him a chemistry set. And he immediately took to it. He was thrilled to have it. He understood these things. I have a chemist in the family, and he told me he figured out how to make garden powder when he was 7 years old. I don't know if Lou was making concoctions and mixtures, but he was inquisitive and curious about the way the world worked and the way the chemistry worked. He had a teacher while still in high school who inquired of him, where was he planning to go to university? And from simple people who were in more simple professions, he said, university, I'm not even sure I'm planning on that. He didn't know that he was on a track. And he said, and the teacher immediately saw something great in him and said, somebody with your intellect and your curiosity and your abilities, somebody who needs to be in university. And he was tracked to go to university. And he excelled at university and he excelled in his graduate studies. Chemical engineering is in a field that applies engineering and science together, the production of chemicals, other materials. He could have worked in pharmaceutical companies, which I think he consulted on for many years, energy, environmental work, food manufacturers. He was involved with the creation of NutraSweet. I'm told there's a book called The Book of Sweet Success, and you can look him up there. He was involved with some of the work that was done on insulin and the creation of insulin, heparin, different amazing drugs, amazing chemical compounds, figuring out how to make them, how to mass produce them, how to make them in the right machines, how to figure out what goes where and what has to be when. A tremendous credit to his profession. And he was intensely respected by all of his colleagues and given high prestige in the companies he worked for. As I said, the family moved from Toronto down to the United States. They moved to Michigan first, and eventually to Park Forest in south of us in Illinois. They had a lovely life there, had a wonderful time there. They were involved in the conservative synagogue. The kids continued to grow up. He made his mark. He was involved with the Dawes company, Vernon Dawes, with G.D. Cyril. He was so prestigious and popular, he was even invited once to the inaugural ball at the White House. They next moved to Des Plaines as the kids were getting older, to Wheeling, and they continued to thrive. New houses, new places for tinkering, new places for projects, new places to make the garage into a workshop, and to do tremendous things there. One of his loves was the love of woodworking. He worked one summer apprentice with a boat maker who made, I guess, rowboats or different wooden boats. And that taught him maybe some of the basics. But when I asked him several times where he learned to make bookcases and where he learned to make an Aron Kodesh and where he learned to make all types of wooden furniture, he's mostly self-taught, figured it out by himself. He was just had a certain brilliance and a certain know-how. There was a rule that he had that when you graduated high school or when you turned 18, you got a bookcase. He made the bookcases for his children and grandchildren with pride and with love. Customized them, what kind of wood, what kind of stain, what kind of style. And when it got a little bit hard for him, he recruited Heather to be his apprentice. And she worked diligently in that garage. When I knew this wonderful man, he was a walker. You would always see him in Park Plaza walking. He was in his 90s and he would walk 2 miles a day. Most people in their 40s and 50s don't do that. But yet here he was, determined to stay healthy, determined to stay strong, aware of his limitations, aware of his body, and wanting to push himself in a good, productive, healthy way. Really an inspiration to those people that are living in the community that are older and see a man who's tall and lanky and keeps walking and walking and going and going. When he couldn't walk outdoors, he walked inside. When he couldn't walk downstairs, he walked around the halls of the building, around the halls by the apartments. He liked to travel. He liked to explore the world. Took the kids on road trips. I think there was a station wagon involved. And they went to California, stopping in every state they could in the book, backwards and forwards, ticking off the itinerary. They went to Israel. They went to all different types of places. He was a loving grandfather, and he had a tremendous smile. Bryna was talking to me once, and she told me that when she held his first grandchild, the smile was infectious and unbelievable. He just fell in love. I can see him sitting with his dear wife, Rose, having a wonderful lunch, eating his trademark bowl of potato chips, and enjoying people and them coming up to them saying, Dr. Goldsmith, how can I help you? How can I be there for you? What can we do? They wanted to be around him. They wanted to learn from him. His politeness, his grace, if I can use the Yiddish word, his menschlichkeit, the way he acted with people, his common goodness, it shone through. He was very disciplined. He liked to be on a schedule. He liked to be organized, but he was never harsh about it. At least to me, he was always pleasant. He was always good about it. We had a beautiful gathering. Is it 3 years ago? Is it 4 years ago? Forgive my memory. When his dear son, Rabbi Aaron, passed away. And the family came together beautifully to dedicate a Sefer Torah, to dedicate a Torah scroll in his memory. And it was a beautiful gathering. And Rose and Lou were right up there at the front, smiling ear to ear. And to this day, that Torah scroll, that Goldsmith Torah, sits in our urn and is used every Shabbos to grace us as we learn and as we grow. This week's Torah portion and last week's Torah portion and the coming Torah portions speak about the construction of the Mishkan, the construction of the tabernacle. This week speaks about the clothing, the vestments worn by the high priest. And it's not coincidental that these are parshios that Lou could really relate to. These are topics that were really fit for him. How to build, how to be, how to construct, how to make things to honor God, how to make things to honor the people, how to make things to beautify our worship and our service. And that's something he knew very well. It says that the creator, the engineer, if I can use that term, of the Mishkan, who was named Bezalel, the Torah tells us was filled with wisdom to create, to think, to dream, and to have special knowledge. Dr. Goldsmith, Eliezer ben Yitzchak Halevi, was filled with that special knowledge. Just like Bezalel, he was filled with special wisdom to know and create and to build, to understand those things of chemical engineering which may be foreign to many of us, but he got it, he understood it, and he knew how to perfect it and make it beautiful. I think of the verse in Micha, in the prophet Micha, which says, what does God want from you? How does God want you to live a good life? Ki asos mishpat v'avas chesed v'atznei aleches im Elokecha. To do justice and pursue kindness and to walk humbly with your Creator. This is a verse I think was very apt for Dr. Goldsmith. Do justice, be kind, and walk humbly. A tremendously humble, wonderful person. And one last point about the Mishkan, about the tabernacle that was built in the desert for the Jewish people. We're told with all the fanfare, and with all the beauty, and with all the intricacies, and all the precision that it took to craft this sanctuary, you're not allowed to do it on the Sabbath. When it comes for the Shabbos, you're not allowed to build the Mishkan. As wonderful it is, as much as you're honoring the Lord, you can't build it on the Shabbos. And so now, for Dr. Goldsmith, we have reached his Shabbos. We have reached his time of rest. We have reached his time of peace and quiet. The plans are over. The building is over. The construction is over. His neshama is eternal, but the legacy goes on. And we say to him that he should rest. As the week comes to a close and as we reach the Shabbos, he should have a beautiful and everlasting rest. Yehi zichro baruch. May his memory be blessed forever. Amen. We'll now hear from his dear son, Gerald, followed by his grandson, Paul, and his grandson, Shmuly.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. You know, you can tell so much about a person by the things they overcome in life. And I want to share with you all some of the things my dad overcame during his life. And some of these you'll be familiar with, and there might be one or two that maybe perhaps you're not. Most of you know that what a stellar career my dad had. And being a chemical engineer and everything that he did. But what some of you may not know is in his early career, he had a very, very tough time. It was very, very tough because he had a boss that totally disliked him, that did hellacious things to him, to make him look bad, and to try to submarine his career. And it was very tough on my dad. And it just was very, very hard on him. But he bit his tongue and continued on until the company needed someone with his skill set to play a major role in the development of what would become their blockbuster product, NutraSweet. And from that point on, Dad's stature in that company continued to rise like a comet for years and years and years until finally, when he retired, the company bought the whole Botanic Gardens for a night and had an unbelievable commemoration and retirement party for my dad. And at that party, Aaron, Bryna, and I all gave speeches. And we had a lot of trouble getting through the speeches. We were so busting with pride. During Dad's life, he also faced a lot of physical adversity, which includes a couple decades ago when he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And I remember driving him to the doctor's office where he would get implanted the radioactive particles to treat it. And, back then, those things didn't have the success rate that they do these days. But he was so brave, and while we waited, he never showed any fear or doubt, because I think he didn't want me to worry. But of course, I was very worried. But happily, the treatment worked 100%, and he licked it. In recent years, he faced a lot of other medical challenges. Certainly, long COVID was one of the worst. Long COVID is just a devastating disease that takes over your body, causes havoc in all kinds of places. And even though you can recover from it, you don't recover from it unscathed. It leaves its mark on you. But Dad, a little worse from where, did recover from it. Then he suffered mini strokes that would stop a younger man. But once again, even though at times he looked helpless in the hospital, Dad managed to bounce back and return to a normal life. And that brings us to the last couple months, when Dad caught pneumonia and endured other complications as well. And though he once again looked very frail in the hospital, I prayed with the right medical help that he'd be able to recover. But Dad didn't seem like he was getting better. And there were some false positives along the way. But overall, he just stayed very sick. And the doctors at the two hospitals where he was made it clear that they didn't see him recovering. Though Bryna and I would talk about his resiliency and how he'd come off the map before when things looked so bleak. Through everything that's gone on recently, the saddest day for me was the day I finally realized Dad wasn't going to bounce back this time. He'd always managed to do it before, but it wasn't going to happen this time. And now, Dad's passed. We're all here to honor him. But the surprising thing for me is that though there's a lot of sadness, I find myself at peace now, knowing that Dad lived what has to be one of the most fulfilling lives that anybody could possibly live. And the centerpiece of his life was his deep love for my mom, which grew stronger and stronger as time went on. Their love for each other is pure and inspiring. And that love powered Dad through his life, and especially towards the end, when he was determined to celebrate Mom's official birthday, which he did. Dad and Mom got to watch their kids thrive, produce grandkids and great-grandkids. They got to travel to faraway places, retire at a place that truly cared about them, and make many new friends there. If they had a bucket list, I believe they got everything checked off of it. I can't say for sure if there's an afterlife or not, but I can't get the thought out of my head that perhaps right now, somewhere, someplace, Dad is reconnecting with Aaron. And who could be sad about that? call.
This speech is a culmination of a coordinated effort between myself and my two sisters, Heather and Shula, as well as some useful input from our dear mother. Our grandfather had many accomplishments in his 96 years of life. He came from very little and put himself through school, earning his PhD in biochemistry and microbiology from the University of Toronto, and grew as a young chemical engineer to help with the creation of NutraSweet. While his long career is admirable, his biggest accomplishments have to do with his family. He was an incredible husband to our Nan for over 72 years. He adored his wife and had the utmost respect and gratitude to her for raising their 3 children while he traveled the world for his career. Every decision he made was with Nan and his family in mind. In their later years, our grandpa cared for our Nan in the most beautiful and loving ways, holding her hand through his last days. While our grandpa was always a humble man about his professional accomplishments, he enthusiastically shared stories about each of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren and all of their accomplishments with friends and family and the family legacy that he built with Nan. Part of that legacy is how much time we spent together as a family. We have so many fond memories of Grandpa because he was a constant presence in our lives. For nearly our entire childhood, Nan and Grandpa would join us for Shabbat dinner. That was always followed by card games that I'm pretty sure no one outside of our family has ever heard of. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that their weekly visits on Shabbat dinner always included a fruit roll-up or fruit by the foot, as well as a sibling fight over who would get to open his beer. That quality time each week, except for the winter when Nan and Grandpa hightailed it out of Chicago for the warm weather of Palm Springs, allowed us to really get to know Grandpa and for him to leave a lasting imprint on our lives. There are 3 qualities that we'd like to focus on today: incredible discipline and acting with intention, lifelong learning, and devotion to family. It was hard to pick the right story or example to appropriately highlight Grandpa's immense discipline and focus, so we went with 3. When Grandpa was in school, he created a system in the house where his parents could trigger a buzzer that would notify him that it was time for dinner. God forbid he waste any time from his work and studies, that he would know exactly when dinner was ready. Grandpa never went through the motions. If he did something, he did it right, and was incredibly thoughtful and in a methodical way. He had plans for everything. Grandpa's later in life penchant for walking never met an obstacle he couldn't overcome, whether it was mapping out walking routes in unfamiliar places or calculating how many loops through Park Plaza he needed to walk in order to meet his goal. Grandpa also meticulously planned all of his travels. Our mom shared so many stories from her childhood road trips where stops were planned down to the minute, with planned seat rotations every 100 miles, as well as car fire drills. After a very successful career, Grandpa was incredibly fortunate to retire in his early 60s in great physical and mental shape, and to continue on as a lifelong learner. To stay active and stay sharp, he found 2nd, 3rd, and 4th acts during his retirement. First, it was carpentry. As noted, Grandpa designed and built custom bookshelves for each of his kids and grandkids. That's 13 in total, plus other miscellaneous furniture, as well as building their own Kodesh for Solomon Schechter's new Northbrook campus, where me and my siblings had a chance to go to school. Every piece of wood he used was thoughtfully chosen, and as grandchildren, we each had the opportunity to select our own wood type, finish, and features. Our bookcases were intended to travel with us through our studies and into adulthood. He also ventured into the world of business, providing back office support to our Uncle Aaron and Transfer Master. After that, as his grandkids started their own careers, he would read industry information on various topics so he could carry a conversation on things like cognitive psychology, real estate, and various other careers of his grandkids and their spouses. He inspired each of us to be lifelong learners and pursue careers we are passionate about. Everyone who met our grandpa was instantly drawn to his sweet disposition and infectious smile. He had a gentle way about him that was welcoming to all who interacted with him. He cared deeply about everyone in his life, and as he got older, his family circle grew bigger, including our friends and their families. When Grandpa asked questions, he didn't just listen to responses, he dug deeper to learn more about the other person's interests, studies, and profession. Regardless of their interests or profession, Grandpa always found a way to connect with those he met, even if it meant quizzing the doctors on his medical team. Grandpa's love for all of his family was deep and never in doubt. We will all miss our birthday calls with him and Nan serenading us together. It may have been a few years since he last gave us any running jump hugs, but the tradition carries on through our mom and her grandchildren. Grandpa, you have always been a role model and truly a one-of-a-kind grandpa. We will continue to pass along all of the family traditions you and Nan established and keep our family growing strong for generations to come. Your dedication to Nan and your family was unmatched and will continue to be a guide for us in how we care for our families, including Nan and our parents. There are not enough words to express our deepest gratitude to Christine and Christmas for providing you with so much care and comfort the past couple of years. They too have become part of our bigger family circle. Grandpa, we grew up knowing that we could always rely on you, and though we will miss you every day, we know you are always with us and in all of our homes.
Thank you so much. Finally, Shmuly.
Thank you, Rabbi. And I think I want to thank you for everything that you've done for the family. And I would say that over the last 5 years, I don't remember a conversation that our grandparents didn't thank you and talk about how wonderful you are to them and to the whole community. So let's start with that. Thank you. As lucky as I am that I get to speak at most of our family simchas, it's truly an honor to be able to stand here and share words in honor of such a legend. This is the circle of life. The intensity of the pain we feel has direct correlation with the immensity of the love that we have. The greater love, the greater the pain, and how lucky we all are that we had you. How fortunate we are that we had your love. But unfortunately for us, today that means we're hurting, and today we're hurting really bad. To so many of us, Grandpa was the calm, collected voice in our chaos-filled minds, listening patiently to our stories and problems, then processing the data with that supercomputer in his head before printing out a solution for us. Like one of his hand-drawn maps, Grandpa was our guiding light, and Grandpa was our guardian. But Grandpa was also a scientist, and as a technical director for NutraSuite, he was responsible to build teams all over the globe that needed to operate flawlessly even when he wasn't around. He spent 96 years giving us the tools we need, engraving those instruction manuals for a happy, healthy Jewish life right in our brains. He gave us all the shliach mitzvah money for life. So Grandpa and Nana, I'm up here to thank you guys for everything. I'm up here to bear witness to a remarkable adventure that began in Toronto on July 11th, 1952. And I'm here today to remind us that we no longer need to raise our voice for Grandpa to hear us. And we no longer need to start every conversation with, "Put your ears in, Goldsmith." Because from today forward, Grandpa can hear even the faintest whispers in our hearts. For the rest of our lives, the guardian of the Goldsmith galaxy is living inside of us. He's living through our actions, and he's living through our good deeds. When the doctors told him he probably had a few weeks left, Grandpa smiled and said, "I think 96 was a good run." Now, Grandpa, you're going to have to excuse me, but I'm going to challenge you on that. I don't think you had a pretty good run. I think you had a pretty great run. Actually, I look around the room at the legacy that you and Ann have built, and I know you had an absolutely incredible run. Truthfully, Grandpa, I need to correct you one more time, because your run is not over. Your kids, your grandkids, and your great-grandkids, and if Zalmi gets his act together, soon to be great-great-grandkids, we're still running for you. And we're running on the shoulders of giants. And we don't plan to stop running anytime soon.
Let's take a moment to let all the special words, thoughts, and feelings sink in of a wonderful man, wonderful husband. While this is the time to mourn and the time to grieve, we have heard so many thoughts that should give us comfort and give us a smile. Dr. Goldsmith was born on the first day of the month of Adar, one of the happiest months in the Jewish calendar, where we're taught to bring in simcha, to bring in joy. And he passed away on the 5th day of that month. We're told that someone who is born and dies in a similar time is a sign of righteousness and goodness. So let us take today's words, today's thoughts, and today's feelings, and remember a man of goodness, a man who showed righteousness, a man who was correct and honest, a man who loved his wife deeply, a man who loved his family deeply, a man who loved his grandkids and his great-grandkids deeply, and brought goodness and warmth to this world. And when we come out of that mourning and we come out of that sadness, let us bring that smile of Adar and that warmth and that goodness to other people. Again, may his memory be blessed. We'll now rise for the Kel Malay. El Malay Rachamim, Shochet Bamiramim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Al Kanfei Ashchina, B'malas Kedoshim Utarim, Kezohar Harakia Masirim, L'nishmas, Rabbi Eliezer ben Rabbi Yitzchak HaLevi, Shalach Le'olamo, B'avosh Mespalim B'eraskaras Nishmaso, V'ganei Den Tehei Menuchaso, L'chein Ba'al HaRachamim Yaster B'Seitzer K'nafav Le'olamim, V'tzror B'tzor HaChayim Es Nishmaso, Adonai hu nachalaso, v'yanuach b'shalom ha'mishkavo, v'nomar, Amen. God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant fitting rest beneath the protective wings of the divine presence, where all the souls and the pure ones, whose radiance is like that of the heavens, reside, to the soul of Louis, the son of Yitzchak, who has gone to his eternal world, insofar as we will make charitable contributions and pray in his memory. May that be in the Garden of Eden be his resting place. For this reason, may the ever-merciful one shelter the deceased under his protective wings forever, and may he bind his soul in lasting life, for the Lord will surely be his benefactor, so that he can rest in peace in his allotted place, and let us all respond, Amen. You may be seated.
This concludes the funeral here at the chapel. The interment will take place at Shalom Memorial Park. For those who will be joining the family in procession, we'll be lining up on the west end of our chapel. We ask have your headlights and hazard lights on while in procession, and drive as close as safety permits your vehicle in front of you. At the conclusion of the interment, the family will be sitting Shiva at Park Plaza. The times for Shiva on the service folder that you received when you arrived, or on the website that you joined to watch the funeral on the Zoom. The following individuals have been asked to act as pallbearers: Yitzy Goldsmith, Shmuly Goldsmith, Moshe Goldsmith, Phil Weitzman, Paul Towb, and Yehuda Summer. If we can all rise and have the pallbearers please come forward. Once we've left the chapel, we ask everybody to go immediately to their vehicles, and then we'll be going to the cemetery. Pallbearers please come forward.